Good morning and welcome to the News of History. Today's guest is the well-known mathematician Hypatia. She agreed to interview with yours truly. Thank you for your time.
I was happy to come over. I had nothing else to do.
How does it feel to be alive again?
It feels great.
Okay. Can we jump right in? So you were born in Alexandria and your father is the famous astronomer Theon of Alexandria. Is this correct?
It is indeed. He wrote many commentaries on mathematics. He commentated on the works of Ptolemy and Euclid.
I understand you worked with your dad on some of them.
Yes, I have. One of the things we worked on together was Book 3 of Theon's version of Ptolemy's Algemist.
Aside from your father, you edited on the conics of Apollonius, correct?
Correct. The book was about Apollonius' ideas. I was just able to make the concepts easier to understand.
You must be very smart to be able to simplify them.
Stop, you're making me blush.
Can we talk about your childhood? According to our research, you spent most of your time as a kid in the library in Alexandria. It must have been wonderful running around a museum as a kid. It was a center of learning in the ancient world.
By that time, the library wasn't as appealing as, say, 20 or 30 years before. So spending all my time there wasn't as splendid as it seemed.
Okay. Moving on to the next topic, Hypatia is commonly known as the last scientist to work in the Library of Alexandria and the head of the Neoplatonic school in Alexandria. For many of us, Carl Sagan's dramatic count is in our memories forever. Let's listen.
Let me tell you about the end. It's a story about the last scientist to work in this place. A mathematician, astronomer, physicist, and head of the Neoplatonic School of Philosophy. That's an extraordinary range of accomplishments for any individual in any age. Her name was Hypatia. She was born in the city in the year 370 AD. This was a time when women had basically no opinion. They were considered property. Nevertheless, Hypatia was able to move freely through traditional male domains. By all accounts, she was a great beauty, and although she had many suitors, she had no interest in marriage. The Alexandria of Hypatia's time, by then long under Roman rule, was a city in grave strain. Slavery had weakened classical civilization of its strength. The growing Christian church was growing in its power and attempting to get rid of pagan influence and culture. Hypatia stood at the focus, at the center of attention of mighty social forces. Cyril, the bishop of Alexandria, despised her because of her close friendship with the Roman governor, but also because she was a symbol of learning and science, which were largely identified by the early Christian church with paganism. In great personal danger, Hypatia continued to teach and publish until the year of 415. On her way to work, she was set upon by a mob of Cyril's followers. They dragged her from her chariot, tore off her clothes, and flayed her flesh from her bones with shells. Her remains were burned, her works obliterated, her name forgotten. Cyril was made a saint.
If this isn't accurate, how would you describe it?
To begin, I wasn't the last scientist to work at the Library of Alexandria. If being the last to work there is an honor, the honor belongs to my father. But as I've said, by the time he lectured there, the museum and library had suffered for decades, perhaps centuries. Then what was left of the library was largely destroyed in 391 AD. The Serapeum was destroyed at that time, and there wasn't much value remaining there. But by the time I started teaching there was no recognizable library at Alexandria. As for teaching at the Neoplatonic School of Philosophy, that's just fiction. Yes, I taught courses on mathematics and philosophy. Yes, some of my better students were Neoplatonists, but I never headed a school. I taught a circle of students. Some of them were really good students, but some of them could not rise to the state of individuals.
Okay, but you can see how Sagan would idolize you. To him, you were a symbol of learning and science, so dedicated that you remained single and rejected all suitors. You set everything aside for your love of knowledge.
The modern fascination with my relationships and beauty amuses me. On one hand, how would anyone know? When I was murdered, I was forgotten for a while, except for a few letters from Synesius filled with crediting me with the invention of the astrolabe. So you're forced to rely on texts written by men who never even saw me, and written more than 50 years after I died. On the other hand, and more importantly, why does it matter? Fantasies about my beauty and sex life are irrelevant. I blame in large part Kingsley for making me out as a female hero, although Toland had already cast me as a sexual figure. I don't understand why so many historians and scientists let their imaginations run wild.
Finally, before I say goodbye, can we talk briefly about your death? I realize it's a delicate subject, but I thought you could clear some things up for us.
It's okay, I've had 1,600 years to come to terms with it.
Moving on. Our sources tell us that you were forcefully taken from a carriage, stripped nude, beaten to death, torn apart, and burned. What we're wanting to know is whether or not, as Sagan suggests, abalone shells, or as others maintain, roofing tiles or even oyster shells. We would like your opinion on what the motive was.
Okay, I'll be honest, I wasn't paying attention to the mob's weapon of choice. And again, why does it really matter? It doesn't affect what happened that day. To my mind, and the more interesting question is, was being pagan the cause for my death? Although I realize that my death at the hands of a Christian mob plays well for modern audiences, it seems far-fetched to me. Yes, the mob was Christian, and I just so happened to be pagan, but that was a mere coincidence.
Well, I suppose we should wrap things up. I don't want to take any more of your time. Thank you for stopping by and answering a few of our questions. Tune in for next week's historical figure.